You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158.
Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the voices of those who serve on the front lines, behind the radio, and in the hearts of their communities. Today, we're bringing you a special two-part episode with an incredible guest whose story is one of resilience, dedication, and an unwavering passion for the job. Miranda has spent over 23 years in emergency services, beginning her career as a paramedic at just 19 years old. She's worked in critical care transport, fire rescue, and even the ER before a life-changing accident forced her into early medical retirement. But her dedication to helping others didn't stop there. She transitioned into dispatch, where she now serves as the calm voice in the chaos for multiple fire, rescue, and law enforcement agencies. In part one of this episode, we'll dive into Miranda's early years in emergency services, how she became a paramedic, the experiences that shaped her, and some of the most memorable moments from her time in the field. She'll share the challenges of working in high pressure environments, what it was like to be a young woman in the profession, and the realities of responding to life or death situations every day. Miranda, welcome to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Let's get started.
Hello, Miranda. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to have you on the show and to kind of hear your side of things from your perspective
And that's
as far
nice.
as first responders.
A lot of people don't think about dispatchers, so we definitely appreciate that.
You're very much welcome. I'm going to go ahead and just get background. You have such a deep and well-rounded experience in emergency services, from being a paramedic to a dispatcher and even teaching. What first drew you to this line of work?
So I think just kind of in general, my love language is giving and nurturing. There's just something that's so healing and powerful about being able to help others. So it's just given me a great sense of purpose to be that person for somebody on what may be the worst day of their life.
That's definitely pretty honorable. Very honorable. And you became a paramedic at 19 years old.
I did.
What was that like, being young and in such a high stakes environment and job?
So if I could sum that up in one word, it would have to be challenging. So not only being a female, but also being so young in a male dominant field, I felt like I had to work a little bit harder to just prove that I belonged there and that I deserved to be there. Um, and it, but once you're in, you're in. But I did feel like I had to work a little bit harder because you have a lot of the people that have, been there for a while, or, a lot of them are men, and they just kind of look at you like, I don't know, I felt like they looked at me like I was going to be a problem. So I just felt like I had to really show up and show out every single shift, every single challenge I had to take head on and just prove that I got this. So it was definitely challenging.
Yeah, you stuck it out. You did what you had to do, and you
You
proved
know,
yourself worthy. Obviously,
yeah, sure enough. But like I said, once you're in, you're in. So there's
right?
that. But the getting in, it can be a little tricky.
Yeah, the hard part's getting in, and um, I imagine.
Yeah, oh,
Uh,
for sure.
uh, about what? How long ago was that? As far as what was the year when you guys started?
I started in 19 nope, 2000, right in 2000.
Yeah, so there's still a little bit of that, he man woman hater type stuff,
Yep.
that masculinity and all that stuff back in 2000s. It was still kind of, I mean, you would think that wouldn't even be an issue going into a new era, but obviously it still was.
And it very much so, and it's such a male dominant field. I think nowadays it's a little bit different, but I still feel like women in public safety face their challenges, whether they're law enforcement, rescue, fire. I still feel like there's a lot of challenges that women face. But those women who do it, they're tough cookies. I will give them that.
I bet. I bet. Do you think that they still have to work harder to prove themselves worthy? Is it still like that, you think?
I don't think that it's probably as intense as I feel like it used to be, but I still feel like there are some men that have that mentality, but I feel like maybe as we evolve more, it's probably more of like a man wanting to like protect a woman because let's
Yeah.
face it, women are just genetically and we're just built different. We're not built like a man. So the fact that they don't want a woman, not just a woman, but one of their family members to get hurt on the job, I think makes them feel a little more protective, which may come off as them doubting you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. They're seen as protectors, and they obviously don't want to see a female officer getting hurt.
Right.
I've heard stories about that old adage about a man doesn't want to see a woman in a battlefield because they would just like linger over the wounded or the dead,
Yeah.
which would
But
cause more harm than good. But
and I think that that's just women. That's just how women, I think, are just naturally built to be nurturers and givers. So it may be a little hard, but a little bit harder for us to disassociate in that moment.
right, I can imagine. I can imagine. So your life took a major turn after your accident. Can you share a bit about what that time was like for you, both physically and mentally? First, what happened in your accident?
So I got T-boned by a lady, and she rolled my vehicle 7 to 8 times. And I saw her coming, but I thought I had cleared her. I was on a highway, and she was on a side country road, and I thought that I had just got her, and she got my back driver's side fender just enough. It was kind of like a pretty aggressive, almost pit maneuver. And when she hit me, I remember her hitting me, and then I remember being cut out of my vehicle.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
don't remember anything in between. But I also didn't, when I woke up, there was a lot of adrenaline, so I did not realize the magnitude of what had really just happened.
So you actually lost time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. No memory of anything after what happened. Just
Mm-mm.
getting hit, and that was it.
And that was it.
Oh my gosh.
And then
So
after, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was after that I got life flighted to a local trauma unit where I spent 32 days in the hospital. And like I knew I had gotten hit, but I just didn't realize like I said, the magnitude, the severity that followed.
Okay. And how severe was it?
It was it
Both
was pretty
physically and mentally?
it was pretty bad. I broke 3 vertebrae in my neck, and I had a lot of internal bleeding. I had 4 brain bleeds. I had lacerated organs, broken ribs, bruised lungs, fractured femur, fractured pelvis. So she did a good number on me.
Now, was she speeding, or was that just a plain accident? Didn't see it, or
No, she was speeding, no doubt about it. She what I gathered later was she was in a mental health crisis,
mm,
and she had schizophrenia and
And
paranoia,
paranoia.
and she thought people were chasing her. So
uh,
she was in her car just pedal to the metal trying to escape what was hallucinations. There was nobody there, but in her mind she thought they were after her, so she had to get away. And I just happened, I guess, to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
yeah, you were in the path of a tornado that couldn't be stopped.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, you just never know. I mean, that could have been a lot worse than what you got.
Definitely. It it was eye-opening though. I spent a lot of time being really angry and really resentful because it took me a little over a year in physical therapy, and I did a combination of like physical therapy and chiropractic therapy because I did not want to have my neck fused together. That was something I just didn't want. So I worked really hard, and honestly, I think the physical was easier than the emotional.
Yeah. Oftentimes we find out that the physical part is easier to heal than the mental part.
Most definitely.
It's unfortunate, but now were you able to walk or anything like that afterwards, or
I
was that
did. I
okay?
did. I did. I walked like immediately after the car accident because I woke up when I woke up in my vehicle and I realized that I was trapped. I felt trapped, shall you say, and I could hear them cutting and sawing, and but I really wasn't. I wasn't in. I guess the moment I was just like, she hit me, get me out of this vehicle because I felt really enclosed and um, panic set in and anxiety set in. And I was like, get me out of this vehicle, get me out of it now. And they're like, you need to sit down. I was like, don't touch me. Like, and I was like, why'd she hit me? And I just went through this like panic,
Hmm.
and
Fight or
they
flight.
eventually do. It definitely was.
Mhm.
And so eventually I was like, holy crap, like that really just happened. They're right. Like I could have a lot of damages. I need to take a chill pill. And that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, unfortunately a few weeks ago I was at the scene of a accident similar to yours, but they were hit. They were T-boned. The driver's side. It was an old elderly gentleman, and
Uh,
I think his granddaughter, um, old gentleman, was coming out, and he kept crawling out in the intersection, which it's a really bad intersection. It's always busy, and it's on a hill, and cars come flying down the hill. So I stopped and waited for him to make his move. I didn't, and I was in a semi, so it takes me longer to get moving than in a passenger vehicle. I didn't see the car coming on the other side, and it just plowed right into him. And I was just
uh,
like, "Oh my god!" That was right there. Fortunately, I had my camera. I put my my own personal dash cam in my truck,
yeah.
and I was able to hand over the uh, the SD card to the sheriff so they can do their investigation. But fortunately, I was there to kind of calm the passengers down, and
Right.
people were frantic. The guy and the gal that hit the car, they were just all over the place. Yeah, I was able
That's
to grab my
scary.
fire extinguisher and run over there to make sure that it wasn't on fire. But fortunately, it was just the steam from the radiator.
Mm,
And then I just walked over to the other side because the guy was yelling at the old man, and I was just like telling him, "Calm down, calm down. He's an old man. Just calm down.
right.
About your lady." And I walked around and I talked to the passenger and I talked to the elderly man and I was just asking him how he was feeling, and if anything was hurting or anything like that. And I was like, "There's somebody on the phone. Help's coming. Just sit still. They're gonna be here, but I'm gonna stand right here and wait with you and talk to you until then." And
Yeah.
it wasn't, I don't know, about 3 or 4 minutes, and it was just crowded with EMS and the fire department and stuff, and sheriffs were there. So
I'm assuming everybody walked away.
yeah, everybody was fine.
Good. Good.
The gal that hit the vehicle, she was just in a frantic. She got up and stood out of the car, and I could hear her screaming, and she was screaming and saying, I can't walk," but she was standing up, and I overheard her tell the paramedic gal, she was like, "I saw the light was green, and I went, and that car pulled out in front of me," and the gal said, "Honey, there is no light here."
Oh gosh. Was she intoxicated?
I don't know. I didn't get that close to her at all, but
Yeah.
I was like, this woman's delusional. There is no light at this intersection.
So in my mind, immediately I started thinking, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I have like brain trauma because people with like head trauma a lot of times get in this, they get combative. And
Mhm.
so after mine, I was like, I'm not combative, I'm just fight or flight. Like
Right.
I all I remember is her hitting me, so now I don't know, it was a lot of emotions, but I was like, I need to calm down because they're thinking I have like this massive head trauma, you know. But it was pretty intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never been in any serious accidents like that, so I couldn't even imagine what that's like. But
And like a fun fact about, if there has to be a fun fact, I truly believe to this day, and I wear your seatbelt. It's the law. I know that. That day I didn't have my seatbelt on for whatever reason. Had I
hey,
had my seatbelt on, though, I would have died because my
oh really?
engine was in my driver's seat.
Oh
Like
my
the
God!
whole driver's side was crumbled. It looked like an aluminum can with the engine and parts of whatever's under the hood was literally just shoved through. The steering wheel was almost in the back seat, and I was driving an Excursion, if that tells you how big this vehicle was.
Hmm.
And the steering wheel was almost in the back seat. But
Holy,
the passenger seat was barely, I mean, it was some of the door was crumbled because they had to cut it off. But the post was great. My roof wasn't caved in, like nothing. It was like I literally got picked up from the driver's seat and sat in the passenger seat just like that. So I'm like, if I had my seatbelt on that day, that engine would have crushed me. Like that would have been it. So I truly believe that my seatbelt not having it on that day, for whatever reason, definitely had an impact on why I'm here today. Now, wear your
yeah,
seatbelt. I'm not advocating for you to not wear your seatbelt,
right,
but I have worked accidents where it's like, wow, like not having their seatbelt on was actually beneficial. But
right.
I do wear my seatbelt just for the record. But that day, I don't know.
Yeah, somebody was watching out for you.
For
Most
sure, they say God only protects fools and babies. So,
definitely. You might be right about that.
yeah.
So, moving from being hands-on as a paramedic to working behind the radio as a dispatcher, how did that shift change your perspective on emergency responses?
Excuse me. It definitely gave me a new perspective. When I first started looking at the dispatch field, I thought to myself, I've been on the other side of the radio pretty much my entire life. So I felt like I can bring pre-hospital on the outside world into dispatch and be able to utilize that for the better. But I will definitely tell you it was a new perspective because there's a lot of people that feel like dispatchers, oh yeah, they're just like glorified secretaries. No, ma'am, no, sir. There is a lot that happens behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. So
Right.
definitely, I was like, kudos to y'all because it definitely was a lot, but it was rewarding and challenging. But I do feel like being pre-hospital kind of helped me integrate some of that into the dispatch field.
Yeah. You think it kind of prepared you for kind of assisting people and how to handle certain situations?
I think it's a blessing and a curse when it comes to being so pre-hospital because my mind goes paramedic. But I have
Okay.
to realize I'm not there. I'm not seeing this, so I can't. But I feel like I do hear things maybe differently than somebody who doesn't have a medical background. So what somebody may hear as, grandma fell and she's asleep. I hear grandma fell and I hear snoring respirations and I hear unconscious and I'm thinking brain bleed.
Hmm.
Obviously, we don't dispatch that and we can't diagnose that, but my medical brain starts to twirl and it's assign symptoms and what it could lead to and the mechanism of the injury, and it so sometimes it can be a blessing and a curse.
Right. Hmm. I know that when I was a kid, I was in a foster home, and my foster dad was a police officer, and I went on a ride along with him. Uh, he showed me the call center. We went through there, got to meet some of the gals that were in the dispatch and stuff, and I couldn't even imagine how you do it. There's just so much going on.
And it doesn't stop. So just
No,
because you're on a 911 call, your deputies are still calling, your PD officers are still calling,
right?
your admin lines are still calling, or just because you got a structure fire doesn't mean that somebody doesn't want to call about, I don't know, they stubbed their toe 3 days ago. Like none of it, it never stops. It just doesn't stop.
It just keeps going.
And
There's,
officers
there's another
doing
one.
traffic stops, this, that, and it's like sometimes you're like, just give me a minute, but it never stops. There's always something. So,
So you
and when
gotta
you're
handle all of that stuff kind of like all at once, or is that like prioritized? Or
so from my experience, and I've worked in a few like rural centers, most of our law enforcement, they listen to the EMS channel. So praise the good Lord, they're not going to do a traffic stop when I'm working a structure fire because there's only two of us in there. So and there are some centers that you work by yourself. One dispatcher in some places handles all of it, which is crazy to me. But sometimes when things happen, they do happen, and you just have to kind of rock and roll with it. And I would say the key to that is having a really good partner that you
right,
just kind of flow with, that you don't have to talk to. Like, hey, you'll handle law, I've got fire EMS, and y'all handle it, you knock it out, you do what you got to do. But sometimes there can be a lot of calls on the board at the same time, and you do have to prioritize. But when you have four high priority calls,
mhm,
there's not really a way to say who's more important. So
right,
I can't really explain it to you. Somehow we just make it happen. And then when it's over, we're just like, geez, we survived.
right.
So it can get intense.
I can imagine. I just don't know how you guys do it.
Sometimes I don't know how we do either.
One day at a time, I
That's
guess.
it.
So, you've seen the job from multiple angles. What do you wish more people would understood about your work as a dispatcher?
Just kind of I think I already kind of went into some of it, was just realize that there's so much that goes on there when you've got six screens, two TVs that handle security cameras, and you've got your warrant page, you're running licenses, and you're doing all this stuff. You have six screens, sometimes eight screens, and all of those play a role. So you're constantly all over every screen trying to take care of everybody at the same time, make sure who's where they need to be and who has what they need, and without making anybody feel like they're not getting the attention they need, if that makes sense. So there's a lot that goes on. And if you don't think it's challenging, I go apply. There's agencies that are so short staffed that they would be, you'll learn. And I've had that a few times where people come in, they're like, this isn't what I thought it is, I'm out. And I'm like, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah, some people just don't have that kind of mentality or tenacity to do that sort of thing.
yep, that's for sure. And you have to be able to think fast, and you have to be able to critically think. And if you
Right.
can't, and multitask, you have to do all those three things simultaneously. And if you can't do that, I, good luck. It can be really tough,
I can imagine. You guys have a tough job.
but it's so rewarding.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How rewarding is that for you? Like, give a scenario. I mean, you could just make up a scenario that would just kind of give us an idea of what you would get out of that.
When you have a caller that comes in and they are frantic and they are screaming and they are crying, and this is the worst day, whether they have come home and found a loved one unconscious and possibly deceased, and you hear them cry and you scream and they're doing CPR, and you're doing all that, and you hear paramedics come in, and then you hear the paramedics say, I'm transporting, we got ROSC, which ROSC means return of spontaneous circulation. So that means after a cardiac arrest, they now have a pulse.
Okay.
Something about that is like, oh my gosh. So like right now, the CPR instructions we gave, she did a good job. Paramedics got there, they did a great job. This guy has a fighting chance, or this woman has a fighting chance. It's they're not out of the woods, but it's just okay. They're transporting, so right now this is a success. Or when you have that young person that calls in and they've either committed an act of self-harm or they're thinking about self-harm. Those are heavy calls for myself just because you're 13. Like this shouldn't be happening. And
Mm-hmm.
you're able to get them to put down the razor and you're able to get them to step away and you're able to get them to talk to you and you know that because of something you said or did, that little girl's going to see one more day. Or when a baby's choking and the mom's first time mom and the mom's panicked and you're able to talk her how to do the Heimlich and how to get that whatever's lodged in the throat out, and then you hear that baby cry. You're like, oh my gosh, like we did that, so there's just there's some pros and cons about it, but when you hear these stories of success, it's definitely just it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you said something right. um and there was one time we had a I won't go into the whole story, but he was a cardiac arrest. We had no idea how long he had been down. So once we even found out like they didn't know a downtime, it already sounded like a grave situation. And then they flew him to a local trauma center. I said, "Oh gosh, like this is great. This is great news." And then about 4 or 5 months later, I get a phone call. And this guy's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And he tells me the story. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. It was the same guy that we had cardiac arrested 4 or 5 months ago. And he was calling saying, I'm in town and I really want to meet the dispatchers who helped save my life and the EMS workers. And unbeknownst to us, he had reached out to the American Heart Association and had gotten us all awarded with American Lifesaver Awards by the American Heart Association. We had a big kind of party where the helicopter crew came and all the EMS crew came and dispatchers came and we just had a good time and I actually still talk to him to this day and that was really rewarding.
In your 6 years as a dispatcher, can you share a call that challenged you the most?
Yeah, so when I read that question, I've had a lot of calls and I really don't know what set some of them apart from others, but this one was a really tough one on me and I'd like to think I typically handle things with somewhat of grace. This one challenged me in a lot of ways that I didn't expect. But I took a call from a young man who I answered the phone and he was very monotone, very disconnected, very disassociated. And he basically let me know that he was going to unalive himself and where we could find his body. He didn't want his parents finding it. And initially, I don't think you're ever prepared to answer the phone, and that's what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely kind of got my attention. It just took me aback. And so we had a conversation for quite a while and I'd actually got him to talk and I already had deputies en route. I already got his location. Um, and so I was like, I just wanted to keep him on the phone till I was hoping that the deputies would get there and, intervene or I could talk him to putting down the gun and stepping away. And we had a good conversation. Well, I say good for as good as it could have been in the moment. And I really thought like we're making progress. And then he just said to me, he said, I gotta go because if I don't, I'm not gonna do it. And he pulled the trigger while I was on the phone with him.
Oh my gosh.
And when I heard the gunshot, I can't tell you. Like I mean I cried, I'm not gonna lie, I cried. It definitely rattled a lot of me. He was very, very young. And I stayed on the phone only because of the deputies couldn't find him. I was hoping that they would at least hear me or I could hear them and help guide them to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I was pretty angry after that call. Like I got up, I told my partner, I said, I just have to go outside. I was angry and I was sad and I was heartbroken and I just thought, what could I have done different? And at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything I could have done different. I don't think that I could have changed it. I think that for whatever reason, his mind was dead set on that. And I think that that's why he did what he did. He said, if I got to go, because if I don't, I'm not going to do it. And I think he thought he was getting close to not doing it. I don't know why he made that decision, but I still think about him to this day.
Wow.
And that was a rough one.
That's a heavy load to carry.
And I just think like he was so young, like his life hadn't started yet. Like I don't know what he felt was so heavy in that moment that that's what he felt his choice was, but I wish he would have stayed. But I also pray that he has peace.
Obviously, whatever he was going through was certainly heavy enough for him to want to end his life.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm definitely no stranger to having a friend wanting to end her life. Fortunately, I was able to intervene, and I didn't know that's what she was doing, but she
Right.
got that gun and had it to her head. Um, when I was a kid, I had a good friend who uh, was a girl. Uh, I was the only boy allowed to go in her room and close the
Yeah.
door. Her mom knew that we were just close friends,
Mhm.
and she was locked in her room. And I opened the door. And she had the gun to her head.
You were there right at the right time.
Yeah, and I asked her what she was doing. I said, "What are you
Mhm.
doing with that? Put it down." And then she stood up and pointed it at me. And then her mom came in, and her mom just got really frantic. And
I'm sure that was scary for you two in that moment to see her like that and then all of a sudden have the barrel pointed at you, and
yeah,
that's no time to really process what's happening right now. That's terrifying.
yeah. Uh, I was just begging and pleading for her to put it down. Just put
Yeah.
it down. Put it away, please. I didn't want her to hurt herself or anybody else.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she gave it to her mom, and they secured it properly, locked it up. Uh, but her motivation was uh, she got in trouble because her boyfriend. She snuck out to go see her boyfriend, and her mom caught her, and she couldn't go with the class to Disneyland because they had a Disneyland trip, a school trip to Disneyland, and so she wanted to kill herself over that.
And being grown now, you look back and you're kind of like, really? But in that moment, I'm sure that felt like the worst thing in her, that could have happened. But now you're grown, and you're just like, that was not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean,
But
when you're a
people
kid,
just
you don't think about those things,
right, in that moment, she was like, my life's over. I can't go to Disney World. I
right?
get that.
Right.
And everybody handles things so differently, even as adults. And I think the mental health side of things, and there has been for years, there's a big disconnect. There's a big crack in the system. And it's, and there can be several different reasons, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, would you say that this incident might have changed the way you see the job, or has it? How has that impacted you on the job?
um, I don't, I don't think that it's impacted like the way I see the job so much. Is there's something I've always encouraged, and it's something that personally I feel should be mandatory across the board of public safety. Is I think that even as dispatchers, um, every single one should be CIT certified, which is crisis intervention training. Because I'm CIT certified, and the class, at first I was like, seriously, another class, another certification. You really can't have too many certifications, but the class was a a huge eye opener for me as to the crisis intervention side of things, because we don't think about that, right? Like we're not there, we're not de-escalating, but we are. We're the first. So there could be something we can say, something we can do that can help de-escalate that situation. And the training was pretty intense. It was a week-long class, and it was a lot of scenarios that made you think. So I do think that's something that should be mandatory, and I still think that, and that call made me think about that even more. Is because was there something that could have been done different? In my case, I don't think so.
Right.
But had I not had maybe the well-rounded background that I have, I don't know that I would have handled it as well as I did.
Right. Now, if you didn't have that background, do you think that would have affected you even more, like mentally?
Probably because when you do dispatch, you have it's a script, and there's questions that you have to ask, and it's almost robotic. And the questions can kind of shed a lot of gray area. But if you but for me, like having the background, like I can see it from a different perspective. I've dealt with it from a different way. So some of the I have to do my script, but then there's extra things that I can, like I said, I hear differently. I my perception is a little bit different. Um, so I think that that does play a huge role in it.
I imagine it probably helped you in quite a bit of ways. Now, on the lighter side, is there any calls that made you laugh that you're reminded of, or why you love what you do?
There has been a lot of funny calls. There's one. So I used to travel dispatch. I did that for about a year, and that was a lot of fun. And this one always sticks out to me again. I don't know why, more so than some of the other ones I've had. Um, but I had two that make me laugh. So I had a little girl one morning. It was like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So why this 5-year-old was awake, I couldn't tell you. But she called 911 because the dog pooped in the house, but she didn't want to wake up her mom. And I was like, okay. So, so to try to get this little girl, like talking to a 4 or 5-year-old is not an easy feat, okay, sometimes. And I was like, I need you to wake up your mom or your dad. Well, first she told me there was no adults in the home. So then I'm like, wait a minute. Why is this 4 or 5-year-old home with no adults in the home? And then it was a whole thing. So the officer ends up going over there because honestly, I'm like, I don't know if the parents are home or not. Like it was kind of a mess. And so the officer goes in and like the mom and dad, she's like, oh yeah, they're asleep upstairs, but can you pick up my dog's poop so we don't have to wake up my mom? And my officer was like, honey, that's not, we don't do that. So that it was cute. It was innocent, but it was cute. And then when I was on assignment, of course, when you're in a regular in an area, you kind of know your frequent flyers and your callers and some of the outlandish stuff that they say. And I wasn't aware that this lady she was definitely a psych. And how would I know? I haven't been here before. So everybody's like, oh, Miranda can take the phone call. And I was like, sure, whatever, I got it. And I don't know, I talked to about 14 personalities in about a minute and a half. And I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. She would scream and yell, talk about South Carolina and Florida, and then she would also be like, oh, well, I'm gonna make some chocolate chip cookies and the grandkids are coming over. And I'm like, wait, what? And then she would scream and yell and she was all over the place. And then at one moment she got in this really deep voice and she said, don't talk to me like you know who I am. I know you're just a dumb white bee from North Carolina. And I said, have we met? And she said, what do you mean have we met? I'm making cookies. And I was like, how, what? Because she got like, it was just kind of crazy. I couldn't help but laugh, but that's what she said. And I was like, it was kind of funny to me. But I was like, how have we met? How'd you know me?
Somebody
But
dealing with multiple personality disorder or something.
Yeah, and like I didn't know her, so I was like, "What's happening?" Where everybody else knew her, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you got to meet Miss Rosa," and I was like, "Haha, thanks a lot, guys." That was rude because I didn't know what I was signing up for.
You got pranked.
I did, and everybody's watching me, and I'm like, "All right, I got something for y'all. Don't worry about that." But it was fun.
Yeah, that sounds like pretty fun. That would have been pretty funny to be a part of that. I would have got a kick out of that.
Well, then at one point she's telling me the birds are loose, and I was like, "Hold up," and I said, "You're," because I don't know, is this true or not? Like, what kind of birds are we talking about? So in my mind, all I can picture is law enforcement, EMS showing up and being like bombed by birds when they enter the house. I was like, "Are your birds in a cage?" She's like, "Do I look stupid?" I'm like, "I don't know what you look like, but I was just asking if your birds are in a cage," because in my mind, I just had a picture of the law enforcement EMS coming in, just birds. I don't know why, but I was like, "Oh Jesus, please."
What are we sending these guys into?
Basically, my Lord, they're gonna come up here and cuss me out in a minute. But
Things some people do.
and you can't make it up. Like you cannot make any of this up. It's
That's a new one for me.
gotta love it.
So, on a bigger picture, you had mentioned that your last or your least favorite part of the job is the drama between agencies. What do you think you could do to improve that?
So I think that is a. I don't know how you would fix that. I think that starts with the top,
Hmm.
and I think that when you're at the top, you can't allow it. You can't partake in it. And I feel like it's this eat your young mentality, and I see that a lot in public safety in general. And I don't understand it, and I've never understood it. Or this like mean girl. So it can be very clicky. And for me, I've never understood like you guys, you're short staffed and you've got compassion fatigue and you've got burnout and you're got this like you're living with this vicarious like trauma from all this stuff and you because you're so short staffed that everybody's forced to work insane amount of hours. But then when you have somebody new that comes in that's willing and able and wanting, you bully them out of here or you don't embrace that. So like for me, I love to teach.
Hmm.
Come on in, I will train you, I will teach you. Um, Granted, some people just are not meant for the job, but if you come in with effort and ambition and the want and the drive, girl, come on, boy, come on. Like I love to train, I love to teach, because we're not going to be here forever. So, there's going to be the younger generations that we're going to have to kind of put in our footsteps. So, I just don't understand it, but it's sad to watch others, and especially when you're in a rural area. So your pickings are already pretty slim
Right.
to turn this into a hostile and toxic. And I don't think that they even realize that's what they're doing, but you really are when you're talking to this person about that person, or you're sharing confidential information, or just everybody's kind of mean girl because then you've given this person a perspective. They're like, oh, that new girl Samantha, she ain't worth nothing, and talking negative about her because your brother's cousin's sister knew her in high school. Like, so this is the things that go on, and it's true. And once they don't like you, they don't like you, and they just start to pick at you till either they run you out, or you just hate your job, or you buck up to them. But once you buck up to them, then you're a bigger target. It's this revolving door, and I don't understand it. I don't, and it's so much easier to be kind and to help and teach and grow together than it is to spend all your time being negative and trying to, hurt people and run people out. So I don't understand that. And it happens. It's a very true thing that happens. And I instead of embracing and teaching it, they're quicker to turn it negative, and I don't understand it.
Right.
And like I said, it happens a lot, and it's disheartening because when you see somebody comes in and they're like, "Oh yeah," and they're proud to say I'm a dispatcher and they want to learn, and because of something very minor, it gets made to be this big thing, and then they eventually get ran out. It's sad.
Yeah, you never know the potential of this person that you're bringing in when you run them out. I mean, you would think that you'd want to try to get them to be the best that they can be at that job because you're
Yep.
right, you're not going to be there forever. Somebody's got to take your place.
Yep. And like I said, you spend more time in the negativity than you do just embracing the positive and helping and teaching and growing together. Everybody can learn from everybody. You can do this job 20 years, and I can promise you, you have not seen, heard, or know everything.
Right.
So, you know,
It almost
they,
makes you wonder how that negativity affects how these people would do their job effectively.
yeah. And then you think about the rate of suicides that are in public safety.
Hmm.
It's a high rate of suicides that happen in public safety, and I don't know. My mentality is, I mean, I'm old school too, I guess, but I don't have to like you, and that's fair. We're not gonna like everybody, and we're not gonna always see eye to eye. But if
Right.
you're my partner for the night, you are my BFF. Like, we are best friends. We're gonna bring everybody home tonight. We've got each other backs. You're not getting a Christmas card. No, we're not going out for tacos. But while we're on shift, and that's how it should be. I don't like every deputy I work with
Right.
for one reason or another. But while we're on shift together, we are BFFs. We thick as thieves because everybody goes home, and you have to have that respect. Where a
Right.
lot of people play that, well, I don't like you, so, and I don't play that. Just because I don't like you doesn't mean I don't want you to go home, or I want you to struggle, or I'm not going to have your back. I don't operate that way.
Everybody's life means something to somebody,
100%.
you know.
And I'm well aware that I'm not made for everybody, because one thing about me is I'm gonna say it,
Right.
and I'm
Straight
pretty
to the
blunt. I don't sugarcoat. You'll know where you stand with me, and some people don't like that, and they consider that like intimidating. And not to sound like arrogant, but like that's on you, not me. Like, I'm just because I'm knowledgeable and I am confident doesn't mean I'm a threat to you, but you think I am or you want to act like that. I don't. It's what it is. Not
right.
everybody's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's shot of whiskey. That's how they
It's
say it, right?
nice. Yep. About as strong as whiskey. I mean, I generally respect people that are upfront and honest and
Yeah,
straight to the point rather than people that beat around the bush because it just, to me, it just makes it seems like you can't really trust them all that
right.
much.
If you don't like me, I mean that's fine. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. I can promise you that. And I'd rather know you don't like me than need to fake that you do, or for me to wonder
So,
where I stand. It's fine.
that is true.
But I don't do the pettiness either. Don't be petty. Just be like, you know what, I don't like you. And I'd be like, cool. Like, likewise, I don't know.
Right. Right.
So,
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.